Well, I think some of the old adages that the sector had before, for example, when people talked about third-party capital and said, this is hot money and it will cut and run at the first sign of trouble. Well, after the catastrophes of 2017, we saw at least $7 billion of new capital enter the sector in very short order. So we know that the sector pretty unequivocally is able to reload even after a very large event. Now, there will be arguments about the type of event and how capital might be affected under different macroeconomic scenarios, but I think we now have to accept that third-party capital is not only here to stay, but will become a very viable source of capital for the future if we didn't already assume that. That's number one. Number two is that we've started to see reserving change. And we've been talking about this now for about 2 years, but the reserving picture is changing, and that's happening because of trends in the macroeconomy. We've seen interest rates go up on, for example, 10-year government yields. We've seen bond spreads go up on investment-grade yields, and we've seen the yield curve shift up, and we've seen inflation increase in most major economies, China, Germany, the UK, and the US. The effect of that is, in fact, some strain on balance sheets, even though insurers are getting a better yield. What's happening is the value of assets comes under pressure as the medium part of the yield curve shifts up, the medium-term part of the yield curve, and then inflation causes reserves to strengthen, particularly for long-tail lines. And where we used to see exclusively reserve releases as recently as 2014 and 15, we're now almost breaking even on releases and strengthening. So there's been a shift in how balance sheets are behaving, both in terms of existing insurance company balance sheets. There's been a shift in how reinsurer balance sheets get reloaded post-event, and I think there's been a shift in perception about the cycle. Well, you're asking me this very early in the season, and as I think I said, everything is still to play for. Don't forget that at this time last year, I don't think we'd had Hurricane Harvey yet. We hadn't had Hurricane Irma or Maria, so a lot can still happen, which means 2019 renewals, I think it's still too early to predict. If everything persists, as it has done during the beginning of this year, which has actually been a low cat loss year, well, with all the excess capital in the sector and all the supply chasing demand, I think you can guess. But I don't think that that's a guarantee in any way, shape, or form, at least not yet.